Hi, everybody. So great to see you. For those that I've not yet met or we haven't gotten a chance to say hello, my name is Nick Kane. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. The Patrick J. McGovern Foundation is a global philanthropy focused solely at the intersection between AI and social impact. We're a team of grant makers, certainly. That is a topic that we're going to talk about today, funding. But we're more than that as an institution. We're also a team of community builders, of learning specialists, of strategists, and also of technologists. We're really proud to have a team of data scientists and engineers actually on staff at PJMF, working to build AI solutions and directly advise nonprofits on their use and development of technology. And we're all working together, right, in pursuit of our shared purpose, building a thriving, equitable, and sustainable future for all. I imagine that purpose is actually one that might sound familiar. There's maybe some words that sit in the value statements of your organizations, one that we're all pursuing together. So I think it's worth starting by just kind of answering the question, why AI? Why is AI the lever that we've chosen to focus on as an institution for a number of years now? In fact, well before ChatGPT and generative AI really thrust AI back into the public conversation in such a meaningful way. I think there's a couple answers to that question. First, of course, is that we believe deeply in the power of AI solutions to drive, when put in the right hands and applied to the right problems, to drive transformative impact. For a regional food bank to be able to use a machine learning model to more effectively determine when and how to distribute food to local food pantries in their communities. For a global conservation organization to use satellite data and a machine learning model to better identify which parcels of land specifically are best suited for ecosystem restoration or rewilding, just to give a couple of examples. But I think the more important answer to that question is that AI is actually an entry point into a bunch of much bigger and important conversations and questions about our society. Especially now, especially in the world we're living in today, a conversation about AI is actually a conversation about power. A conversation about AI is a conversation about equity and access. It's an opportunity to interrogate the world we've built and think about what kind of institutions and values and governance structures we want to build for the future as we lean into what I think will be an AI-enabled future. That's really the question that motivates us, and I like to kind of illustrate why this principle matters so much to us with an anecdote. Just last year, I got on a call with a for-profit climate startup, actually, and they shared with me that they'd developed a new machine learning model that they were really, really excited about because it was going to dramatically improve the ability to forecast water scarcity at kind of a local and regional level. And they say, we're working with clients all over the world to help them understand how water scarcity may affect their operations and their ability to do their jobs. They shared, for example, we've got a brewer that does some work in northern Mexico, an area that is generally pretty arid. And we think we have a sense for, when water scarcity may put their business at risk. I said, that's really, really great, congratulations. I'm curious, do you have some thoughts about how you might be able to share some of those predictions with the broader community that's surrounding that brewery? The community that depends on that water system for their livelihoods, to cook, to clean, to water their gardens, and generally live dignified lives. You may imagine what followed was a bit of an awkward pause, a bit of a shrug of the shoulders and say, look, that would be great. We agree that's important. We're busy, we got to make money, and not sure when we're going to get to that, basically. I'm not naive. I know why that was the answer to the question. I think the point is, I'm not satisfied with the answer, and I think we as an institution are not satisfied with that being the answer to that question. And I think that's the motivation why we believe this conversation in this community, really engaging with AI, becoming builders and adopters and users of AI, is so critical. So how do we bring folks along on the AI journey? Well, one thing we do is, I think it's helpful to kind of take stock. Where is this community in their pathway on an AI journey? We partnered with our friends at Microsoft last year to just do a little bit of a point-in-time survey and research to answer that question. It was a global survey. We spoke to about 1,000 nonprofit professionals around the world, a nice mix of both roles and entities working in different domains and geographies. And we learned a handful of things that I thought would be helpful to tee up our conversation today. First is that organizations that were further along in their AI journeys were more likely to kind of report a positive sentiment toward the technology. This may seem somewhat straightforward or obvious, depending on your perspective, but I think it really emphasizes a point that I like to make often, which is that it's really only in context of your work, a specific application, a specific need or problem that you're trying to solve, where the promise of these tools and potentially some of the actual concerns or risks that may be relevant to your work become apparent. And generally, as that process progresses, that sentiment of positivity and excitement tends to grow. Second was that when presented with sort of a broad set of use cases and kind of asked, what excites you most about the potential for AI? Data analysis and predictive analytics were the ones that consistently across both groups, leadership and staff, said, this is what we need this for. I like this because I think it really speaks to the core potential of these tools. Underneath a lot of the more flashy use cases, which I think have a lot of value as well, is really just the ability to take a lot of data and make sense of it, to pull patterns out of it, and to help us be better at our jobs and in service of our communities thanks to those insights. So I was excited to see that come through in the survey. And finally, we know that all these organizations, even those that were pretty early in their journey, 70% of those who said we're really early still in our journey, and a full 93% of those that were advanced, that were really starting to adopt these tools, said we're already ready to start investing in our tech stack to help us do more. Investment is an important word choice here, right? It comes to the topic of the day. How do you pay for that? We know that sound technology use and innovation comes with certainly great planning, great strategy, but ultimately requires dollars. And so as invested as we are in helping nonprofits move along in their journey, we're also very interested in helping unlock more capital to flow out from philanthropy to help you do this critical work. What we've observed is that by and large, with a handful of exceptions, our good friends at the Omidyar Network, first among them, who we'll be talking with in a moment, there have been some philanthropies that have started to embrace this topic and think about the ways that it should integrate into their strategies, but by and large, most institutions have maybe approached it with a bit more curiosity, certainly, but trepidation, uncertain about how AI should fit into their operations and certainly into their actual strategies to drive change on the topics that they care about most. And we think it's so critical that institutions see this as a tool, just another tool in their tool belt to advance their work on housing, on climate, on health. And so one of the ways that we're trying to help the sector as a whole make some progress is to really build a community of practice among other funders. And we did that, one of the ways we did that was to bring about 100 institutions together last fall for a 2-day workshop and really sit in community and get hands-on. We reviewed draft proposals. We had technologists come in and talk about the sequencing that's involved in a technology development process. And we walked away with, I think, a core set of kind of hallmarks of a strong technology proposal. When a grant seeker is coming to a funder and saying, this is what I want to do with AI, what should they be saying? How should they be demonstrating what they plan to do? And I wanted to share 3 of those with you today. The first is one you may have heard before, but it bears repeating incredibly often. Clearly define the problem. Too often, unfortunately, we see, and I think partly this is due to the incredible potential of these tools, there's so much excitement about what they can do. And so we start from a place of, I know I can work this, I'd love to work this new technology into my work somewhere, we'll figure it out when we get there. That is not sort of the most strategically sound way to take this work forward, right? We don't want, let's bring a chatbot in to take our food pantry example, for example, a chatbot in to help our customers find out when food may be available, not particularly clear, not particularly actionable, but instead, we've noticed that we have two kind of categories of clients. Some that are chronically in need of food support, and some that may be coming to us for a one-time sort of bridge in a moment of crisis. We think we have some data that might signal which of our clients are in those groups, and if we could predict where they would fall earlier, we would be able to serve them much better. That's an AI problem, and that's a really, really exciting opportunity to go further. Second is to understand the strengths and limitations of your data. At PGMF, we actually run a workshop called Data Readiness. It's a really, really important part of the process. I'm sure this group, everyone in this room knows that almost regardless of the AI use case or tool, It's only going to be as good as the data on which it's trained or on the data on which it's querying. Understanding the data that you have. If it's in two places, are those two places going to be able to talk to each other, those two data sets? Do you own all the data that you have? Have the people who perhaps supplied the data given their consent to use it in the way that you're imagining using it with this AI tool? It's not that you should have answers to all of these questions at the outset, but that there should be a demonstration of some of the thinking behind it and how you may adjust your approach depending on the answers as you move forward. And last, it's really critical to try your very, very best to know what skills you need and when you'll need them. As I mentioned a moment ago, the technology development process kind of unfurls in a way that is perhaps different from most other project rollouts or program rollouts in the nonprofit context. It's going to be a bit modular. It has distinct phases: user research, design, prototyping. All of these involve feedback that may lead to pivots or, changes in plans. It's helpful to be able to articulate contingencies, think about what kind of expertise you might need at these various points, how that might affect your timing, your budget, and being able to articulate, again, not present a crystal ball that you know where it's headed, but instead that you know that there may be multiple pathways ahead of you and how you'll plan to react. I want to end on a note. I think it's a really important note to share in conversations like this, which is it's not going to be the case that every nonprofit institution or civil society institution should become a builder or user of AI. Many of you will. Many of you may find those really, really well-defined problems that speak to you and that align really well with a tool that's in your tool belt. I think what we believe very strongly and why we think conversations like this are so important is that it's only when this community, both funders and the folks in this room, and our friends at large technology companies that bring us together in this way and that are the drivers of so much important innovation in this space, create conversation that builds bridges between communities' lived experience and the potential of these technologies, that folks who want to participate have access to participate and the tools at their disposal to do so. That's the only way we're going to get to that future I sort of described at the beginning of my remarks, one where communities' lived experience really start to shape the tools that are shaping their lives, where there is in some sense almost a public option for the AI that we are using in our work. We like to think of that future, we like to call that future a human-centered AI future. It's what we aspire to be building day in and day out at the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. It's an honor to be building that alongside many of you. And we're excited to continue to do so. Thank you so much.
Michelle, thank you so much. And Nick, thank you so much for those remarks. And we'll turn it over to you in a moment. But first, I was wondering if you could just kick off by telling us a little bit about the Midyar network.
Well, first off, this is such a great room, and it is such an honor and privilege to be here. I want to thank my friends at Microsoft and Naria, my dear friend Nick, to just have the idea to get amazing people together in one room. There is a power in convening and sharing information, and I think many of us coming out of COVID, we forgot the power of being in a room together. And so I just want to thank you for your leadership here. The Midyar Network, we are a philanthropic venture. So what is that? So we believe in supporting and funding the culture of tech, what tech should look like, who should be a part of it, what are the creative narratives around it, the business of tech. So the companies, the startup founders, the ideas, the investors who are helping to fund this movement, and finally, the governance of tech. We work with our friends at the McGovern Foundation working with multinationals like the UN and others, thinking about what is the worldwide governance of this amazing technology, and how are we making sure that that is a multi-stakeholder process that everyone has an opportunity to engage. But I want to start with one other thing. Oftentimes you'll see in your laptop, on someone's laptop, that there are stickers, right? Have you all seen stickers on someone's laptop? Sometimes it's a quirky thing, or you may have on my laptop, I have a Care Bear because I have tons of children. But I also have a sticker on the back of my laptop that says, "You belong here." And I want to lead with that because oftentimes when we have conversations about technology or who's funding or who's leading, we often hear it that it's something that's happening to us as opposed to something that we are a part of. And at our core, Omidyar Network is really focused on making sure we all feel that we are the protagonists in our digital future.
That's really wonderful. We belong here. That's so great. You know, you mentioned this a little bit, that it's not just about funding one nonprofit, but it's that creating that whole ecosystem. And kind of with that vantage point, I'm just curious about what trends that you're seeing so far regarding AI funding.
So many things. I also will have to have a fangirl moment. Who is the wonderful woman that I met from Joyce Meyer's Industries? Are you in the room? Okay, so I wanted to start with saying that there are rock stars in the room. In this room, nonprofits from all over, in your communities, you are pillars. You are the people who are leading and changing our lives on a day-to-day basis. I am a former nonprofit employee, an NGO, before law school and a little bit after law school when I was super broke. And I am so thankful for the leadership of nonprofit executives and talented folks who make a commitment to engaging in this work. And I think one of the things that we see is a trend is that some people are saying, okay, well, I now need to build my own AI tools. Stop, time out, you don't have to do that. We want some people to feel like you are the builder of this technology. But we also want some of the rock stars that are in the room to influence the people who are building these AI tools. And when we all see our strength and our value and what we're able to bring to this conversation, that agency I referred to earlier, that's something that we as funders and those who believe in this partnership as a real partnership want to see. One of the organizations that both the McGovern Foundation and Omidyar Network fund is something called the Responsible Youth Technology Fund, where we work with youth-led or intergenerationally led organizations who are thinking about, what does responsible technology mean to me? And so one of our groups in that cohort is called the Cyber Collective. And they work on cybersecurity, data privacy, and understanding technology for Gen Z. So they have the Riz. Do you guys know what the Riz is? Okay, no, I didn't know what the Riz is. Nobody in this room has Riz, but they do, okay? And what they do is they take these applications around cyber that many of us often think about, but they put it in terms and accessible information for the young people. And that's really one of the trends that we hope to see. Not a one-size-fits-all approach, but really who you are, your community, the needs that you have, are really developing ideas and applications to support your work.
That's great. And are there any trends too at all that you're like really giving the inside information and scoop to this room?
Yeah, well, I definitely see collaboration with multiple partners. I think your research, your ideas, the work that you're doing in communities, we're seeing groups of nonprofits or groups of organizations think about, hey, I'm really good at policy analysis. I might be really good, or I have a huge list of people who might be interested in a particular topic, and coming together to develop applications or to give insight to other builders is something that we see and we want to continue to see.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that the kids would say you have Riz.
Oh, I'm trying. My 14-year-old would disagree, but that's okay.
I hear you. So Nick, back over to you. And again, it was a great presentation. And I wrote this down, communities lived experience. And you really talked about that of like, how can nonprofits bring that perspective? Because I know that often when nonprofits are trying to defend their projects or ask for funding, it's all about data and in this like specific way. And it's very hard to like quantify AI right now and be like, okay, it's hitting this metric and this target. Or is it? Is there any advice you'd have about how to kind of show the value to funders?
It's a great question. I want to say that one of the things that we think is really important as part of the answer to your question is actually, and it's something we address directly in the work that we've been doing, the community building with other philanthropies, is actually saying quite directly, this is going to require you to rethink how you think about impact measurement on a couple of levels, right? One is there's a time horizon for this work to develop, for a tool to first be built and then deployed in the context in which it's intended to be deployed, and for the impact of the tool to be felt in its programmatic context, whether it's the, measuring the efficiencies in the food pantry sort of food distribution example I came to a couple of times, right? You're not going to see that in 6 months. You may not see it in 12 months, and you may not see it until 24. And so I think there needs to be a belief and an understanding of how does the tool enable a different set of behaviors that lead to a different set of outcomes. We believe that we see that sort of logic chain that connects the tool to the outcomes. We're going to trust that it's going to get there, and we're going to broaden our appetite for risk a little bit to give it a shot. I understand that what I'm saying is essentially like it's the funders that need to sort of take that on. And I want to kind of own that and say that's something that we certainly have seen more and more institutions start to become open to. What I would share back then with those that are then seeking the funding is I understand that you're often constrained and boxed in by what the funder has asked you to tell them or provide, or the context in which they've asked you to write an application. But the more you can sort of, I think it does come back to that problem definition piece that I already spoke about, right? Like if you take the example I gave of this grouping of, two different types of clients, and like, if you can quantify how not knowing the answer to that question really makes it harder for you to deliver the tidier outcomes that the funder usually asks you for, I think the more compelling your case is, that you can deliver the value that they have been asking you for, perhaps for years, and the X number of people served or cost or whatever it may be. And I think it's just being able to make that, articulate the connection, right? That's really, really critical.
Yeah, and Michelle, I don't know if you want to add from your perspective with the Mid-Year Network and kind of the funding that you do of how are you approaching that kind of question of the impact and measuring the impact of the investments that you're making?
So I often say data is really at the core, it's about a story that we're telling about the people and the communities that we're working with. And so I often ask our grantees and our partners, or even some of our companies that we invest in, to like step back and think about what is the story that you want to communicate about this moment or this block of time. And what I often feel like sometimes with our partners who are on a shoestring budget, that they feel like they have to answer every question and that they have to use this technology to solve all of our challenges. And I really want to disabuse anyone in this room of thinking that this technology alone is going to solve all of our challenges. I don't think it can, but what it can do is it can add some equal access to this fountain of information that is out there. It can take away one of the 12 hats that you wear every day in your roles, and it can think about if I can do better analysis, or if I can take off one of my Superman or Superwoman capes and have a helper think through this issue with me. And so the best examples that I see are really when people think about data or AI tools and applications to augment the work that they're already doing. Not to replace, but to really augment that and to help bring greater clarification for the story that you want to communicate to funders. And I think when we kind of step back and we recognize we do have something to say here, and this is going to help me solve that particular problem, or it's going to step in and help take off one of my many roles and responsibilities, and that then enabled me to move to a deeper level of critical thinking or insight or creativity. Because what I think AI is also going to do is give us the opportunity to get to higher order level thinking and creation. And at the end of the day, I think all of us have ideas that we want to action, and we never have enough time. So let's think about what AI can do to take away some of those day-to-day pressures so that you can really experiment with some of the great work that you're doing.
That's really wonderful. Well, Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot and just because we have a really cool session tomorrow. It's going to be in the Regency Ballroom in the afternoon time block, but could you share a little bit about what you're going to do in that session, because it's super hands-on and I think very actionable.
Of course, I'm happy to take the opportunity for commercial anytime. I have a handful of colleagues with me here in the audience, and the four of us will be facilitating a workshop that I believe we've called Smart Tech Sound Proposals.
I was like, smart tech, strong
proposals, thank you. And what we're going to be doing is so I'm going to give you three of the hallmarks of a strong proposal in my remarks a moment ago. We're going to kind of go through the whole list. We're going to talk through what it looks like to put together a proposal that represents a really, really strategic approach to technology development. Then we're going to get hands-on. We're going to review an example proposal in groups. We're going to have discussion. We're going to share sort of a revised proposal that we think demonstrates sort of a more robust approach that kind of we think is sort of an exemplar of how you want to put your best foot forward when describing plans to incorporate AI into your work. We'll have a good group of folks that do this every day in their work to give you advice and feedback. We're really excited. We'd love to see as many people who can join us there.
Yeah, so bring your ideas and they can help you workshop to actually think about how to bring those to life.
And I may throw out one more plug, only because we have the time. For those that can't join us, a lot of what we'll talk about is actually available at PGMF's Learning Hub, which is a place that we have put up a number of resources to help organizations along their AI journey. It's at learn.mcgovern.org. It's very easy to remember, learn.mcgovern.org. So if you miss us tomorrow, you'll be able to find all those materials there as well.
That's awesome. And Michelle, last question to you, because Omidyar is all about collaboration and partnership, and we have lots of different, folks from all types of sectors, and you anchored really on like those partnership proposals as well. Just curious about like what are some like one or two hot takes on partnership and collaboration best practices during this time?
I'm going to give you three quick things. One, you are the person best positioned to tell your story. So think about what is the unique value add of your work in the community to our friends who are watching around the world. What is your unique story that you want to tell about the work that you're doing? And then two, are there partners who can step in on pieces where you're not as strong? And if you can think about your partnership as a collection, I love to cook, as a stew that you're putting together. Someone's really good at data analysis. Someone's really good at organizing. Someone's really good at telling the story. Bringing all of those pieces together in collaboration and partnership, you're able to build a cohort, and then you can come as a collective to donors and say, look at this well-reasoned, designed group of nonprofit leaders who are ready to move to the next stage. How can you help support all of the work that we're doing? We love to see that creativity and that innovation. And again, you are the best people to tell your own story.
I love that. I want that stew.
Yes.
Okay, I want to say a huge thank you to Nick and to Michelle for an amazing panel. Thank you so much.